Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gridiron Junkies podcast. I'm your host, Rick Horn, and hey, if you're already part of the community, welcome back. We're glad to have you. If you are new, however, do consider liking this video, giving that thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, get the bell with the notifications, the whole 9 yards, right? Any way that we can grow this community, make it bigger, get some more, just, good banter, good talking going about football. Hey, all the better, right? I do want to talk a little bit more about the XFL. So I know in my last video, I talked a little bit about the lawsuit that was going on right now between Oliver Luck and Vince McMahon. Unfortunately, I do not have any more news as far as that's concerned. As soon as I hear something, I'll do a video and I'll talk all about it, right? But no more news on that front, but there is still quite a bit going on with the XFL right now, particularly with the auction. If you remember, I said it was in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is redistribution of assets, redistribution of debt, that type of a thing. And so now there are some changes to the dates as far as the auction is concerned with the XFL. Right now, the deadline to put a bid in to buy the XFL out of bankruptcy is July 30th, whereas it was July 6th up until recently. The official auction is going to be August 3rd, and then the post-bid sale hearing on August 7th. So they kind of shifted things to the right a little bit, about a month later than when we were originally going to find out when the new owners of the XFL, or who the new owners of the XFL was going to be. And according to Daniel Kaplan of The Athletic, which is a super reliable resource, he reported that, quote, dozens of bidders are showing interest in purchasing the XFL and restarting the league in 2021. Now, of those, quote, dozens of bidders, there have been 20 bidders that have been confirmed to have signed a non-disclosure agreement, and currently 6 more are in the process of doing so, of signing that non-disclosure agreement. So it looks like this is going to be more or less a blind bid for the XFL. I think it looks like Vince McMahon is really trying to get as much money as he can out of this, so you can't have one bidder, putting their bid in. The next bidder sees it and he just bids $1 more, just to have a little bit more. It sounds like he's really trying to get maximum profit, and I can't blame him. You really can't blame him in that regard. It's certainly an interesting strategy. That's why I think they're doing the non-disclosure, kind of the blind bid, if you will. That's why I think they're doing it. So right now, we don't know who any of the bidders are officially, but there is currently one right now that is a pretty strong rumor to be. There's one company that's rumored to be a bidder, and it's a big one. Right now, Disney is being heavily rumored to have interest in buying the XFL. That's crazy. The mouse himself, right? Mickey Mouse is going to own the XFL. But no, I mean, I think it's very viable. I mean, obviously, right? Disney, if they weren't already a juggernaut in and of themselves, I mean, everybody knows the brand, right? They've been around for longer than probably a lot of our grandparents have been around, right? They're a huge name. And if they weren't already, like I said, a juggernaut on their own, you look at the companies that they own. They own ESPN, they own the Fox Entertainment Group, they own ABC. And so certainly Disney would check all the blocks for, having obviously the revenue within the company in and of itself, and then obviously the streaming platforms, right? They could definitely, airing the games would not be an issue for them, and it may even be able to take that viewership to the next level. And one thing that I find interesting about that, if you look at the XFL this past season, they did have partnerships with ESPN, ABC, and Fox, if I'm not mistaken, to air their games. And if I remember correctly, I may have this just a little bit off, but I remember that reading somewhere something along the lines of the fact that the partnerships that they had with TV, different TV partnerships that they had, I think it was one of those things where the XFL was not charging any of these companies to stream their games, but rather just allowed them to keep any profit that they got off of streaming the XFL games. So obviously, if Disney does end up being the company that buys the XFL, they won't have to outsource for that. They can keep that all in-house. So that's definitely something to think about. Along with, if you think about, look at the NFL, right? They have an exclusive partnership with Amazon for Thursday Night Football. The primetime games, where they stream it on Amazon Prime and that whole bit. The Disney could possibly do the same thing with the XFL, right? They have Disney Plus. So a lot of those primetime games, something very similar could be done with the XFL in that same regard. So it would definitely be interesting if Disney does end up being the company to buy them out. Regardless of how you feel about them, I know a lot of people feel some type of way about what they did with Star Wars, and other franchises like Marvel, things like that. But regardless of how you feel about that, I mean, Disney, they have obviously an impeccable business model. They've been around for a long, long time. So certainly they have the cash to be able to do it. The main thing that concerns me about Disney, especially with Disney, but certainly for any other potential bidder, is what would the branding of XFL look like? What type of presentation are we going to be receiving, right? I liked the XFL for what it was, and it did really well. For the staff that they did have there, the TV partnerships, all of that, it did really well on its own. In fact, I think I read somewhere that their revenue was, I think, either just north or just shy of $20 million, before the league folded. And obviously that's not taking into account any profits that they lost, with the coronavirus and everything. But just $20 million in revenue. That's definitely not something to scoff at, especially after only 5 weeks. So Disney could obviously, take that above and beyond. And again, regardless of how you feel about what they've did with, other brands, they certainly have the means to be able to do something with it. It's just what that something is that might concern me just a little bit. I really, really liked the XFL for what it was. I love the teams. I love the logos. I love the uniforms, the rules, and the overall just presentation of the game, right? I think it started out a little bit rough. I liked the idea of the sideline interviews, but it seemed like it was just a little bit excessive, right? After every single play, they're trying to interview a player on the sideline. But I think they kind of figured that out and cleaned it up. They did a pretty good job of cleaning that up. But just the fan inclusion in the whole game experience was really second to none. And that includes, at the game in and of itself. I can speak from the one XFL game I went to, the home opener there in St. Louis. I took some time off work to fly down to St. Louis to be there for that game. And it was just an incredible experience. So, and you're definitely lending credence to the XFL coming back when, again, just like I said in my last video, they had contacted Seattle and St. Louis about renewing their lease agreements for the stadiums there. And they'd also reached out to the stadium where the Houston Roughnecks played about, looking at the fact, would the lease that they had with them for, the games and the practices that the Houston Roughnecks had, could that be looked at as an asset, for whoever would be buying the XFL. So certainly that's lending credence to the fact that the XFL is coming back. I have little to no doubt, though, now that the XFL will be coming back, unless just something completely from left field happens, like whoever ends up buying it ends up completely repurposing it or flipping it for another profit. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know what would happen with that. But like I said, the main thing, the key thing that would worry me about whoever is buying the XFL would be, what does the XFL relaunch, if you will, look like, or XFL 3.0? What does that look like? What type of presentation are we as fans going to get? What is the in-game experience going to be at the stadiums? That's all things that I really liked about the XFL this time around. Certainly a lot better than what it was back in 2001. If you do a quick YouTube search of XFL 2001, you could see it was very, very gimmicky. I mean, and you really can't expect any less. I mean, Vince McMahon was running the show, and he was also doing the WWE thing. So, go figure there. But I just really thought that they did a fantastic job of presentation. And it did not look like off-brand football. It was quality football. And so I think it's great to have a spring football, kind of a farm system of football. I think, I'm going to keep beating the drum on this. I know I talked a lot about this in my last video, but I have to keep beating the drum on this. I really think that some people have too many expectations about the XFL and, they're going to fail. They're never going to compete with the NFL. Well, that's just the thing. They do not have to compete with the NFL. They just don't. If anything, they could be a compliment, a great farm system, right? So we'll have to see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Disney, the rumors are true? Could Disney possibly be interested in purchasing the XFL? And if so, what do you think XFL 3.0 looks like? Whether that's under Disney, whether that's anybody else. It's anybody's guess at this point as to who the other 20, however many bidders there are out there. It's really anybody's guess at this point. And so we're just going to have to see what happens. I'm definitely excited. I was super bummed out when the coronavirus shut pretty much everything down, to include the XFL. And so we'll just have to see what happens, and I'll keep everybody posted. I'll continue talking about this as more developments come along. But yeah, I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And again, let me know what you think in the comments. Y'all take care.